The galaxy was vast, endless, filled with thousands of planets, countless stars, and many alien species, each proud of their power and legacy. But none dared face what was coming. For years, the great empires ruled with confidence, certain that no threat could challenge them. They believed themselves invincible. Humans were seen as weak, their planets small and unimportant in the grand scale of the cosmos. The mighty civilizations looked down on Earth, dismissing it as irrelevant in the great chessboard of space. But that fragile peace was about to break, in a way no one expected. Far beyond the known systems, deep in the uncharted shadows of space, something began to stir. It wasn't a warship, it wasn't a fleet. It was something else, silent, relentless, and devastating. Whole planets were destroyed without warning, without mercy. One by one, worlds vanished. No army could stop it. Alien leaders were stunned. Their finest warriors and deadliest weapons were powerless. It was as though darkness itself had come alive and begun to devour everything in its path. Panic spread like wildfire. Messages flashed between planets, pleas for aid, desperate warnings, calls for evacuation. The strongest fleets of the galaxy mobilized in haste. But each time they engaged this new threat, they were crushed, swiftly, without effort. The once proud galaxy now trembled in fear. As the enemy advanced, many species began preparing to flee, abandoning homeworlds to save what little they could. The darkness was winning. It was the bleakest time in living memory. And yet, in the midst of this fear and retreat, something unexpected happened. One ship did not run. While entire fleets withdrew or vanished, a single human vessel remained, anchored at the edge of the danger zone. The ship was called the Resolute. It wasn't the largest nor the most advanced, but its crew's courage was unmatched. Its captain, Marcus, was a man of sharp eyes and a calm voice. With unwavering resolve, he led his crew into the heart of the unknown, where others dared not go. Other species watched in disbelief. Why would humans stay? They had no powerful weapons, no grand fleets to back them. Many laughed, predicting the human ship would be destroyed in moments, just like the rest. But Marcus and his crew held a secret, not a weapon, but a belief. To them, running was the same as surrendering. Sometimes, the only way to survive was to stand and fight. The Resolute broadcast a message to the galaxy, a warning that the coming war would decide everything. Some ignored it, some mocked it, but a few listened. They said this enemy was unlike anything ever seen. If not stopped, it would consume everything. Still, most doubted the humans could make any difference. Then the dark force arrived. It surged toward the human ship with terrifying speed and power. Inside the Resolute, the crew braced for battle, weapons primed, shields activated, every crew member at their station. Captain Marcus's voice echoed through the ship. "Stand firm! We will not run!" The first clash was brutal. Space lit up. With lasers and missiles, explosions rocked the vessel. The enemy's ships, dark and endless, closed in like a tide. But the humans fought back. Their moves were sharp, their tactics unpredictable, daring strikes and rapid turns that confused. Even the enemy, they didn't fight like the others. They were precise, brave, smart. Other species watched the battle unfold in awe. These humans weren't weak. They were resilient, fierce. And something began to shift. Hope returned. Across the stars, smaller. Fleets sent messages. Some offered help. Others asked to join the humans' stand. The galaxy, once frozen in fear, began to stir. But doubts remained. Could one ship, a single crew from a small overlooked planet, truly stop a force that had shattered entire civilizations? The answer was unclear. But Captain Marcus and his crew had already chosen their path. They would fight, no matter the cost. The galaxy held its breath. The human ship did not move. It became a symbol, a sign that something new was rising. The stars, silent witnesses to the unfolding battle, now watched as the first spark of resistance was lit. And so began a new chapter in the galaxy's story, one of danger, courage, and the unexpected strength of humanity. After that first battle, word of the Resolute spread fast. Whispers turned to reports. Reports became headlines. The galaxy now spoke of the human ship that didn't flee, of the crew who dared to face the darkness and lived. Alien leaders who had once dismissed humans now watched with a mix of curiosity and fear. This small crew had done what their greatest fleets could not. They fought and survived. Captain Marcus and his crew were more than soldiers. They became symbols. Where others turned away, they held their ground. And in doing so, they changed everything. In the Resolute's command room, Marcus stood before a glowing holographic map of the galaxy. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. This was just the beginning. His officers moved quickly, repairing systems, tending to the wounded, preparing for the next step. Messages poured in from across space. Some were cries for help. Others were grim reports of planets falling. Still, Marcus believed, not in weapons, not in superior firepower, but in the human spirit, in reason, in courage. Meanwhile, the dark enemy grew bolder. Their scouts moved faster. Their fleets grew larger. They sought the humans, eager to destroy what had embarrassed them. But the Resolute was not easy to catch. It moved constantly, adapting its route, staying just out of reach. And with each move, the crew sent out a simple, powerful message: stand and fight, or lose everything. That message spread to frightened ships hiding in asteroid fields, to colonies that had lost hope. It lit a fire in hearts that had only known fear for weeks. Not everyone listened. Many alien leaders still called the humans fools, daring, yes, but doomed. What could one ship do against such power? But inside the Resolute, no one questioned their purpose. The crew trained harder. They refined their tactics. They prepared for war, not just with weapons, but with knowledge and unity. Then came a turning point. A strange energy signal was detected in the enemy fleet. Faint, but real. It wasn't random. It pulsed with a pattern, an intelligence. The enemy was not just a force. It was being controlled. Captain Marcus and his officers studied the data in stunned silence. This wasn't just an invading fleet. It was a guided force, part of something far bigger and more terrifying. Instead of breaking their resolve, the revelation strengthened it. If this enemy had a source, a mind, a center, then it could be understood. And if it could be understood, it could be stopped. As the Resolute pushed deeper into the war zone, small groups of alien ships began joining them, ships inspired by the humans' stand. These new allies brought fresh technology, new tactics, and renewed spirit. Together, they formed a growing fleet, not mighty, but determined. Hope was no longer a whisper. It was a flame, a rising signal in the darkness. But danger was always near. The cost of failure would be everything: planets, lives, futures. At one critical moment, the Resolute received a warning from, "This is a natural point to continue the next section if you'd like me to carry on." Shoulders, and they would not let it fall. The Resolute and its fleet advanced through the dark nebula, shields up and weapons ready. The air on the ship was tense but focused. Every crew member knew their role, and there was no room for fear. Now, only purpose. As they neared the hidden base, enemy patrols began to appear. The first wave struck hard, but the humans and their allies responded with precision. Fighters darted through space like sparks, dodging blasts and striking back with deadly aim. The battle grew fiercer as they drew closer. Explosions rippled across the void, lighting the shadows of the nebula. The enemy's defenses were vast, with mines, automated turrets, and relentless waves of ships. Yet the Allied fleet pushed on, coordinated and unified like never before. What once were scattered survivors were now a true force, forged in fire and loss. As the Resolute led the charge, Captain Marcus guided his crew with calm orders and unwavering courage. Finally, the enemy base loomed ahead, a monstrous structure pulsing with dark energy. It radiated power and menace, but also weakness. The humans had identified a core, the heart of the weapon, buried deep within. If they could destroy it, the base would fall. A small strike team was formed, made of elite pilots and engineers from multiple species. They boarded a stealth ship and raced toward the core, slipping past enemy fire under cover from the fleet. Inside the base, chaos erupted. Alarms blared. Enemy forces scrambled, but the strike team moved fast. They reached the weapon's core and began the overload process. It was a race against time, with enemy guards closing in every second. Back on the Resolute, Marcus watched the countdown. "Hold the line," he ordered. "Give them the time they need." And his fleet did, holding back the tide with grit and sacrifice. The moment the core exploded, a blinding light filled the nebula. The dark base shattered, sending shock waves through space. Enemy ships panicked and scattered. The weapon, the terrible threat that could have ended millions of lives, was gone. Cheers erupted across the Resolute and the Allied ships. They had done the impossible. They had struck the heart of the darkness and survived. The galaxy trembled not in fear, but in awe. The humans, once overlooked and dismissed, had become its beacon of resistance. And though the war was far from over, a turning point had been reached. The fight would go on, but now with new hope, and with humanity standing at the front. As the enemy base loomed ahead, tension gripped every soul aboard. The silence of space shattered with the hum of charging weapons and the rhythmic pulse of engines. Then, like phantoms, enemy ships emerged from the void, surging forward to defend. Their stronghold. The battle ignited in a blaze of fire and metal. Lasers sliced through the darkness like lightning bolts. The humans struck fast, their tactics sharp and unpredictable. The Resolute tore through the outer defenses, flanked by allies holding the rear. Inside the enemy stronghold, alarms screamed. Officers barked panicked commands, but the humans advanced with unyielding force, pushing through wave after wave of defenders. Their eyes were set on the core, where the enemy's superweapon awaited. The fight turned savage. Every corridor bled danger. Still, the humans pressed on, fueled by resolve. At last, they reached a vast chamber, humming with alien tech and glowing energy. The weapon pulsed with deadly power, ready to wipe out entire systems. Captain Marcus gave the command. Charges were planted. With moments to spare, the Resolute and her fleet escaped. Behind them, the enemy base erupted, casting a fireball across the black void of the nebula. It was a hard-earned victory. The weapon was gone, and, with it, the enemy's greatest threat. Across the stars, silence gave way to quiet celebration. Hope flickered back to life. Humanity had proven that even in darkness, courage could rise and win. But the enemy's hatred smoldered in retreat. Their defeat stung. And now they plotted revenge, not through brute force, but through shadows. Their next strike would be aimed not at ships, but at the soul of their enemies. Captain Marcus knew this wasn't the end. This was just the start of a deeper, longer war. Let me know if you'd like this entire section split and rewritten in equal word count segments like your previous projects, or if you'd like the next part continued in the same refined style.